The Petalburg Woods is like the Viridian Forest of Hoenn, but with a larger variety of Pokémon. Having already played through Fire Red using only Viridian Forest Pokémon, I've decided to do the same thing for Hoenn and use only Pokémon from these woods. Before we begin, be sure to check out Pokedoku, who's collaborating with this video. Pokedoku is a puzzle website inspired by Sudoku, but instead of numbers, you fill the squares with Pokémon. And today, there is a special Nuzlocke Joe themed puzzle that I challenge you to complete using only Pokémon from the Petalburg Woods line. With that, let's get started. I can't use any of Birch's lame Pokémon, but I choose Trico anyway to make things a bit tougher in the future. On Route 101, you can catch a Wurmple, but I want an authentic one from the woods, not this cheap knockoff. Before I can get there, I defeat May with my Gecko, talk to my dad, and am finally able to wander aimlessly through the woods. My real starter ends up being a Shroomish. Next, I get Cascoon and Zigzagoon, who would have been a Pooch if this were Emerald, but I play Emerald enough as is. Silcoon is different enough from the cast, so let's get her too, followed by Slackoth, and finally, Talo. This gives me a full team of 6 Pokemon. We easily defeat this Team Magma Grunt and get some experience in the Rustboro Gym. Even so, all of my Pokemon are dramatically underleveled for the Rock Sand battle, though it shouldn't really matter since Shroomish is a grass type and that's basically all you need. Thanks to healing, Geodude sticks around for longer than expected, but she simply can't survive the 4 times effective Absorb. Since Nosepass is just rock, and he has decent special defense, Absorb is quite a bit weaker here, so I need to use Leech Seed as well. In the end, Shroomish beat this gym all on her own, as expected. I beat another Team Magma Grunt, saving a non-Petalburg Woods Pokemon in the process. I don't know why you'd want it though. If you ain't from the woods, you ain't goods. While making my way back to Rustboro, we have our first evolution, Jessie the Cascoon, who evolves into Dustox. And after meeting up with her namesake, May the Silcoon evolves into Beautifly. This brings us to Brawly with a still underleveled team. That's going to be a constant issue here. Sharing experience between 6 Pokemon is just too much, in my opinion, and I'm avoiding any unnecessary grinding too. It's fine though, because the pre-poison Talo easily wing attacks both his Machop and Makuhita, winning me the second badge. I hand over Steven's letter that I certainly did not read on the way, and get, without a doubt, the most important item in the run. No, not Steel Wing. That's okay, I suppose, but what I need is the experience share. With it, I can actually level up my weaker and crappy Pokemon, like Slackoth, without them having to fight. I chase off Team Magma again. Something about my perpetually low-level Pokemon really scares them, and this leads to the next May battle. Things start off well enough, with Shroomish having the advantage, until she pivots to Combusken. That's okay, I'm sure that Talo cannot do it. But he's hurt now, so someone should be able to finish him off. Right? 2 more deaths later, Combusken only falls because I got a lucky Leech Seed. Well, it's safe to say I underestimated that lady. Shroomish finishes off Wailmer, and her own Shroomish is defeated by a combination of Dustox and Beautifly. The important thing here is that I didn't white out, though I was halfway there. Even after beating basically every trainer I can find, Shroomish is still several levels too low to evolve. Though I don't have much hope in this fight, let's challenge Watson as is. I try to have Vigoroth get lucky with some rock smashes against Magnemite, but that doesn't happen. I do manage to defeat the Magnet, and even the Voltorb too, but not Magneton. He destroys my remaining team, and we have our first loss. And if you appreciate watching me lose, subscribe to the channel and you can watch it happen all the time. With that loss weighing me down, there's only one thing left to do. Massacre a bunch of innocent wild Pokemon until Shroomish becomes the fighter I always knew she could be. With her quick jab, she blows through Watson's 3 Pokemon, barely taking any damage. That second time was a lot easier. I need to stop Maxie from blowing up this volcano, but thanks to Intimidate, Mightyena takes these punches far better than she should. All it really does though is stall for time. Lanoon manages to headbutt Flinch Camerupt just enough to prevent him from dying. Nice. Golbat is put to sleep with Yawn, and the now evolved Swellow can finish it off. Unfortunately, this brings us to Flannery. I'm not looking forward to this fight. Even with Guts, Slugma survives Swellow's wing attacks. She does defeat the first one, but is then flamethrowered by the next. Lanoon starts to headbutt, but thanks to Attract, I need to swap around a bit, sacrificing Dustox against her Torkoal, as well as Vigoroth to put her to sleep. She wakes up too fast for my liking, but even as Lanoon falls, the grass-type Shroomish Mach punches, winning my 4th badge. This is actually the first gym badge I've gotten where more than a single Pokemon contributed. Great teamwork, guys. For some of you. Speaking of teamwork, I don't know where that segue was going, actually. Another gym battle. Norman starts with his first illegal slacking, likely pumped full of steroids to evolve 8 levels early. As strong as he is, my level 17 Dustox knows Protect and Flash. After flashing a few times, I see just how pathetic a Gust is, and eventually swap to Lanoon, who knows Dig. It's also very weak, so I throw in a couple of Tail Whips, hoping for a flinch or two, and that the Flash will keep me alive, but nothing. Gut Swallow then defeats the Giant Sloth, but Vigoroth proves to be too powerful for her. Norman's slightly less illegal slacking, Focus punches Beautifly on the swap. I was expecting a Facade, but if he keeps Focus punching, Breloom can easily win with her own faster, albeit less focused punches. And honestly, that went better than I had expected. For the next rival battle, I thought she would start with Shroomish, so after a quick swap, Breloom knocks out her Whale. This time, my bird is strong enough to defeat Combusken, and the Shroomish too. That was way easier than last time. For Winona, I start with my pre-poison Winona to Silk Scarf Facade. It works on her first 2 Pokemon, but obviously not Skarmory. Breloom sacrifices herself to Leech Seed, and then it's just a waiting game with Vigoroth, who still hasn't evolved by the way. Unlike some people, I don't cheat. When that metal bird is low enough, Swellow defeats it, and is positioned to Facade Altaria too. With Facade, this bird is an incredible powerhouse. Easily my favorite early game bird. But May doesn't know how to poison her bird, so it's a sad state of affairs for her. For perhaps the first time this run, I'm choosing to use Beautifly in a major battle instead of just being a sacrifice. And she defeats Combusken. Sweet. Wailmer and Shroomish are then both headbutted by Breloom after Beautifly falls, ending our rivalry once and for all. I chase off more Magma guys, and am now able to swim across the ocean. Beautifly and Dustox were even more underleveled than the rest of my team, so I take this opportunity to fight a bunch of random swimmers, letting them catch up, and in some cases, exceed the others. Regardless, they're all still well below the twins' Pokemon. Not that it matters, because all I need to do is Steel Wing each rock twice, and they oblige by not targeting Swallow at all. That's one tactic to have, I suppose. Unfortunately, this is where the run completely unravels. Up till this point, I haven't needed any other Pokemon, aside from the Trico I was forced to get at the beginning. But now, I can't dive with these Petalburg Pokemon. Sure, Lanoon can swim, but he can't go under the water. But rather than catch a filthy non-forest dweller, I'll just cheat and give Lanoon dive anyway. I'm more like my father than I realized apparently. But I'm not going to use it in battle, so it's fine. That badger thing drags me down to the depths of the ocean, where I find Groudon and Maxie. I start with Dustox this time, since he has Silver Wind, but Maxie didn't like that. Here I thought Jessie would actually be useful. Against all odds, Breloom the grass type brick breaks his Camerupt and eventually defeats it. I sacrifice Vigoroth against Crobat, and Swallow eventually gets revenge. It takes a while because I did not poison her Pokefood this time. With Mightyena, Dustox comes back out and barely defeats the dog with 3 remaining HP. We then leave the ocean and I find Groudon for a second time, running away because I don't want this cave dweller, though I do want the final badge. My first attempt goes poorly. Against his last Pokemon, I thought Swellow's Facade would one-shot Milotic, but it doesn't, and then it all comes down to Milotic and Lanoon, but his fish can recover, so Nikolai stood no chance, and I lose. On the second attempt, Beautifly drains his Love Disc, is sacrificed, so Breloom can brick break Celio. She Mach punches Milotic this time, and with that extra damage, Facade is now a crit and would have defeated Milotic anyway. Okay. Dustox then drains Whiscash, surviving countless earthquakes, and is promptly horn drilled by Seaking. Swellow then finishes the battle doing what she does best, almost dying to Water Pulse and getting confused. But it all works out okay. While making my way through Victory Road, Vigoroth finally evolves. This is what a real slacking looks like, guys. Pay no attention to Norman's fake ones. She evolved just in time to help me with the Wally battle, knocking out Altaria in 2 returns, though it took twice as long as a normal Pokemon would. Delcatty is Brick Breaked after Breloom wakes up, Gardevoir is also returned in a few hits, but Slacking barely made it out alive. Roselia is flown at, and last, Magneton is also Brick Breaked. Though we're still way underleveled, which is the theme of this video, let's see how the Elite Four goes. Breloom is intimidated, but still takes out Mightyena without too much trouble. On Absol, I swap to Dustox as a sacrifice, allowing Slacking to return, which is still not strong enough to one-shot. Surprising. The second one does the job. The Cactus is flown by a pre-burned Swellow, and Lanoon then sacrifices herself to Tail Whip this shark. With that minus defense, a Mach Punch is hopefully strong enough to one-shot, and it does. Too bad Shiftry has extra sensory. But being grass and dark, he is quad weak to bug, meaning that Beautifly can actually do something for once. Good job, girl. Phoebe will likely be more difficult, even though Slacking can learn Shadow Ball. The first Dusclops knocks himself out, and Swallow's Fly is quite a bit weaker than I expected, but can still defeat Bayonet. I sack Dustox to poison the second Dusclops until Slacking comes out to get frozen. Well, that's fun. There's some healing back and forth, but she eventually gets a crit Shadow Ball. Lanoon falls in love, and then actually falls to Sableye, so I swap to Slacking. She tries her best to beat this ghost, but it's clear that it's not going to happen, so I have to sack Beautifly in order to give Breloom a chance to Leech Seed. She hits a few times, but then 2 dies. At this HP, Slacking can finally knock it out. Bayonet survives the hit though, and brings me down to my last Pokemon, Swellow, who is burned and only at 32 HP, so that's not great. But Fly thankfully does not miss, so I still win, though it was remarkably close. For Glacia, Swellow starts with Facade to knock out Glalie, and then pivots to Dustox, who does some damage to Celio, but mainly was just a sacrifice. What else is new? At full HP, Facade would not have been strong enough, but now it is. Not for the second Celio though. This time Beautifly is sacked, so Breloom can try and fail to one-shot with Brick Break. The second Glalie might survive Facade, so I try to headbutt flinch with Lanoon, but it doesn't do much. With only 2 Pokemon left, this is not looking great. Facade then takes out Glalie, bringing out Walrein, her last Pokemon. As much as I don't want to lose Swellow here, I don't see another option. Now normally it wouldn't matter, this is not a Nuzlocke, so I can just bring her back if she dies, but if she does die, there goes the Guts boost, because I can't poison or burn her in between these battles, meaning she would effectively be useless for the rest of the run. But I don't have any other options. If Facade crits, then she would not have to die. It clearly does not, so she dies a warrior's death. Her sacrifice lets Slacking hopefully not miss a Hyper Beam, and it does connect, beating the third Elite Four member, again with only 1 remaining Pokemon. And I don't imagine that Drake is going to be a simple battle either. Breloom starts by Leech Seeding Shelgon, who loves to protect. Now this would be his undoing if Drake didn't swap. I do the same thing, sacrificing Beautifly, so my secret weapon, Slacking, can Blizzard Salamence. Shelgon is then defeated, and Slacking is paralyzed by Flygon, but still manages to Blizzard. She then dies to Altaria, and I bring out my second secret weapon, Lanoon, who also knows Blizzard. It doesn't work quite as well, his special attack kind of sucks, and he misses, but it's good enough. Dustox survives just long enough to Toxic Drake's last Pokemon, so when Lanoon does inevitably die, it's just a waiting game. More so after a Leech Seed, just to be safe. At the end, Swellow comes out, and doesn't need to do anything, beating Drake again with a single Pokemon remaining. Why is this such a thing right now? Before continuing on, I have saved 3 rare candies here for the very end. Though it won't get me even close to Steven's levels, I use 2 of them on Breloom and 1 for Slacking. This brings us to our final battle against Steven, and we've had 0 Elite Four losses. The battle starts with Slacking Fire Blasting Skarmory. She heals a Toxic, gets spiked, but Fire Blasts again. I sacrifice Beautifly to Armaldo, so Dustox can outspeed to Toxic. The now gutless Swellow flies for some chip damage, and to increase the Toxic count before also dying. Well, already we're down to half our team. Slacking's Earthquake is still not strong enough here, but with Toxic, she still wins. Now Claydol may be Psychic type, but he doesn't actually have any Psychic moves, so after a Leech Seed, Breloom can spend all her time working on getting buff. As long as Steven doesn't swap, we should be okay. 6 bulk ups later, Breloom knocks it out with a Brick Break, destroying its Reflect. Cradily comes out next, likely to try to Sludge Bomb, but never gets a chance. As Metagross comes out, I'd like to emphasize that this thing is 14 levels higher than my highest level Pokemon, so this is hardly a fair fight. Metagross certainly outspeeds, so my hope is that with +6 attack, Mach Punch should be strong enough to allow Slacking to finish it off. It does almost half, not quite, which isn't bad, and she dies to Psychic. Slacking outspeeds Metagross, which is a godsend, but Earthquake is barely too weak, and Slacking is knocked out. Lanoon tries a dig, but it's clearly not strong enough, and Steven wins. Here I was hoping to beat all of these guys without a single loss. But I do have plans for how I can do better next time. I give Breloom Black Belt, so Mach Punch does more than half now, but that actually activates his Citrus Berry, so I'm in a worse position than I was before. So I white out again. A few attempts later, Breloom gets an awesome lucky crit, but since I took off the Black Belt, trying to not activate his berry, it does not one-shot like it would have. That's really unfortunate. Metagross heals, but by swapping out Slacking after an attack, and dealing some damage with Lanoon, Slacking is actually able to defeat Metagross, bringing out his last Pokemon, Aggron. But since Slacking is going to loaf around, and I have no one else to swap to, I'm confident Aggron can do at least 12 damage. That was so close this time. A few tries later, I get to Metagross again, but things have changed. Breloom does not have a Black Belt, so Metagross's Citrus Berry does not activate, but Slacking has Soft Sand to boost her Earthquake damage. This did require a bit of luck in not getting poisoned by Skarmory, but I'm hoping it's more than strong enough to do it, and I get a crit anyway, so I'll guess we'll never know. I really don't want to mess this up, so on her loafing turn, I pivot to Lanoon, the only other living Pokemon. He does some damage against Aggron, but then dies. But that pivot will now let Slacking attack without loafing around first, and a simple Earthquake does it, taking out Aggron and ending the run. Now I know that you can beat these games with anything, probably with even a ham sandwich, it's likely been done at some point, but these challenges are less about if I can do it, and more the method I need to take, and how low level I end up being. And this one was rough. Trying to level up 6 Pokemon without excessive grinding is more difficult than I realized, but it makes it more challenging if I'm always under-leveled. So let me know if there's another set of Pokemon or theme you'd like to see in a future video. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next region.